week on our last episode for the season of Worldwide Gaming, Lysander is born again with a review of Binding of Isaac Rebirth. We take a look back at our top 10 favourite segments from the last 5 seasons. Vince deciphers Destiny's story. And the ever-embarrassing season-end bloopers.
Hello and welcome to Worldwide Gaming. I actually am your host, Ryan.
I'm still Lysander.
And I'm back here.
And today, we've actually done an episode every day for the last year over 4 or 5 seasons. Today is the last episode of Season 5. And what we're actually going to do is something a little bit different and special with the top 10. So stay tuned for that later. But right now, we have the forecast.
The Darkest Dungeon looks to be pretty warm in the upcoming roguelike releasing in 2015 for the PC. With the current influx of roguelike games, we think this stands out as a good-looking one of the bunch, giving it a 2.
They cry, and darkness fears us. They descend, spurred on by fantasies of riches and redemption, till they bear whatever blasphemous abnormality may slumber restlessly in that unholy abyss.
This sequel to the 2011 shooter Homefront is looking about as good as the original, which we were fans of. It's coming to current-gen consoles and PC in 2015, and we've given it a 2.
Identify yourself. Identity unknown. Get out of here, run! Open your gates now! Get back! Open!
The second shooter this week, Get Even, tries to dazzle us with its photorealistic graphics. Incorporating the invasion mechanic from Dark Souls, this PC game is coming in 2015. We give it a 2.
So Lysander, why don't you tell us what you're going to be doing next?
I'm going to be making a sort of review / comparison between the original Binding of Isaac game and Rebirth, the 16-bit remake that came out recently.
I'm sure you're going to be getting into like a lot of depth in the video, but can you just say quickly, like, is it more of a remake with a few add-ons, or like is it completely different? Like, what have they done?
It's definitely not completely different. They've remained mostly true to the original content, but they've refreshed it and made it seem sort of new and exciting for old players, and added a lot of new content as well.
I heard they added a full screen mode as well, which wasn't in the first one.
Big rooms.
Yeah, that's a dot point on the back of the box. All right, let's go check it out.
The Binding of Isaac was a top-down roguelike dungeon crawling with creepies flash game straight from the presumably very twisted minds of Edmund Macmillan and Florian Himsel. It told the tale of Isaac, a young boy whose mother is trying to sacrifice his life in order to prove her devotion after hearing what she believes to be the voice of God. Isaac narrowly escapes his fate by jumping down a trapdoor into the dank and mysterious basement, and of course that's where the fun really begins. As you fight your way bare through room after room of contorted foes with only Isaac's tears as a weapon, you may find items and companions to aid you in your endeavours, or you might just perish and become part of the misshapen scenery. Such was the story of Isaac, which was later expanded with the Wrath of the Lamb DLC, and just recently, through the combined efforts of Macmillan and Nicalis, reimagined into the all-new, all-16-bit remake, The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. So sit back, dead-hard fans and fresh meat alike, as I explain what's new and happening in the indisputably disturbed world of Isaac and his mother. True to its roots, Rebirth sports the same punishing roguelike gameplay that the original game was so intensely proud of. However, now that the game has moved away from the malignant clutches of Flash with its limiting capabilities, there are many new utilities afforded to the player both outside of and within the gameplay itself. Not least of these is the ability to save your game temporarily if you need to rush off in a hurry. When you come back, you can load yourself back up to where you left off, as if it never happened. There are also 3 separate profiles, each capable of saving your progress through the vast sea of content and unlockables independently, progression that will travel with you from one computer to the next. For the less confident players, there are now 2 separate difficulty settings, which is also helpful for the veteran players trying to get their head around all the new content before the game punishes them with the full extent of its merciless roguelike wrath. Other than this, the game simply runs better. It's smoother and less likely to bug out if you amass an army of too many little blue flies. I also greatly enjoyed being able to play one of my favourite time wasters on the go with my PlayStation Vita, thanks to Rebirth being available on multiple platforms. While I do want to soften the blow for returning players as the new content is extensive and creative, I don't want to spoil the experience of figuring out how all the new enemies and items function. After all, in a roguelike, knowing is half the battle, and as such also half the fun. So instead, have this magical little montage of bits and pieces of fresh content I've encountered so far. While Rebirth remains true to most of the motifs that made up the meta of the original Binding of Isaac game, there have been a few key changes that I felt were worth noting. The first is that your maximum health now appears to cap out at 12 hearts, including temporary hearts like soul hearts. That's still a ridiculous amount of health to be sure, but the change does have a significant impact on the usefulness of different strategies and items. Secondly, challenge rooms, shops, and arcades have all been updated to be more variable. Challenge rooms may now contain multiple different chests in a variety of combinations. Shops can now seemingly be upgraded by inserting coins into a donation box. Arcades may contain different variations of slot machines, blood banks, beggars, and fortune tellers. Cain is no longer the most overwhelmingly overpowered character to play as. While his lucky foot used to grant him all kinds of bonuses, such as increased item drops and higher chance of good or rare items spawning, he no longer only receives positive effects from taking different pills. Indeed, he is now entirely capable of getting negative effects like health or speed down, and he is also no longer guaranteed to get items when using the fortune machines. While it is sad to see such a fan favourite lose some of his merits, it makes sense that this decision was in favour of balancing the appeal of using different characters. Good night, sweet prince, flights of screeching angels, sing thee to thy rest. While Cain was busy being stripped of his privileges, Mum's Heart was being awarded the all-new improved boss battle achievement. Always a slightly lackluster foe in the original game, Rebirth has outfitted Mum's Heart with an impressive new arsenal of attacks. The Heart will now rain on an absolute storm of bloody bullets down upon the player, as they attempt to avoid the advances of the minions that also spawn. The droplets fly out in time with the ever-increasing tempo of Mum's heartbeat, and it makes for a far more interesting, intricate, and appropriate ending encounter for that part of the game. The Binding of Isaac is an incredibly entertaining title, and anyone who's a fan of similar genres should definitely give it a shot. Even players looking to try out roguelikes for the first time might find the variable difficulty settings in Rebirth a good way to ease themselves into the tropes of roguelike gameplay. To any fans of Isaac that have yet to look into Rebirth, I would certainly recommend doing so. Nicalis has done an incredible job of redesigning the core elements that made Isaac such a great game into a new and refreshing experience. If you haven't played the original, I would definitely also recommend picking it up, as well as the Wrath of the Lamb DLC on Steam. They're often on sale, and the price is well worth it for this engaging, if more than slightly deranged, little game.
Hey guys, enjoying the show? If you want to see what the WG crew are doing, check out our Facebook. Also on YouTube, we have extended cuts and also previous episodes if you missed out on some. Lastly, if you're into podcasting, check us out on WGcast on iTunes.